All right, everyone, be cool. I paused it, so hang on. Right.
Arts and
Oh, okay, let me make sure this is
just recording. But I don't know if she wants to talk about all of that.
She can.
I'm taking a shot at Michael's last name.
Sorry, guys.
It's not one of those.
There's one thing that is. Okay. All right, so we'll get started. This is such an exciting, Jer, our former editor-in-chief, who's one of our managing editors this semester, remarked that this is one of the best turnouts he's seen for a Sheepshead Review launch party. And sorry, I just didn't know we would like have this sort of arrangement. So I'm gonna just keep walking around the room. I'll go over here with the whiteboard. I have background. Anyway, that would definitely be the case since post-pandemic. We used to be able, prior to the pandemic, we'd have live launch parties all the time. It also meant, though, that or live in-person launch parties all the time. It also meant, though, that we missed out on having contributors from all around the world join us. So while I love to see a room full of people, and we've done launch parties at the Widener Center, which is on our campus, which is beautiful theater lobby area. We've done them over at our coffee shop. We've done them in all kinds of places. One thing we haven't been able to do, as I said, is have others from without join us from far, far away. So even though this is not our usual classroom, even though our classroom is not like fun and exciting as a space, this is definitely more sterile kind of than what we're all used to. Even though this is not like the Widener Center or the coffee shop, the fact that we get to bring in contributors from all around the world and have you all here, I think makes up for that kind of hospital-like ambiance of this room. So I'm so glad to welcome you here. So welcome. I am Rebecca Meacham. I'm the advisor for Sheepshead Review. Sheepshead Review takes place both as a class and as a student organization. So we are always happy to have people who are not taking this particular experience or working on Sheepshead as a class join us as a student organization. We are funded, our print side of things is funded by SUFAC, which stands for the people who decide what we do with our money. No, I never have, I've been here forever. And I'm really, really excited that we will have a print issue this semester. It was a little up in the air, not because of any like long-lasting thing, just because of an issue on our part. But we will have a print version of this issue for those of you who are contributors and maybe all the way across the globe or wherever you are. We will be having a print issue of this go out to contributors sometime in January. There's a lag because we're heading into finals week here. It's not just the room that makes us all sort of like heavier, and then we go on a break for a pretty long time. So January is when we come back to campus, and so we will be mailing those copies to you all contributors, all of you in this room who might be contributing. Those will be mailed out sometime in January. Sorry, I'm running back and forth between tabs, as I do. Okay, there we go. So, all right. So I'll get started in just a sec. I just want to say welcome. It's so great to have you here. If you are someone on the Zoom screen who is going to be reading, we will try to rotate through. Our priority is to have contributors who are here with work in this beautiful, amazing issue, share their work with us. And it's such a wonderful experience. If you've never been to a launch party before, I'm guessing many of you have not. This is a celebration of the issue, and to celebrate works of art and literature, we talk about them or read part of them or read all of them. That's just sort of how we do things. So you'll hear readings today from a group of, a variety of folks. One other thing that's incredibly important to know is that when this issue's design got created by Sophie, who will talk to us in just a moment, we'll also hear from our editor-in-chief, Ethan Kraft. My way that I do my work the best is if I coordinate my clothing with the issue or the thing being launched. It's really part of who I am. It's one of my love languages. It's just how I do it, right? And so immediately, like Facebook, I don't know about you guys, and now you're all young, so you don't probably know what that is, but on Facebook, an ad came up that was like weirdly on brand with our design. Like never had seen this before. So anyway, today, I know it's sad for all of you out there, but I am wearing shoes. I'm short too, you can't see.
Oh, you're not even
I'll get up on the table and walk. No, party. But I am coordinated. I'm very excited about this. And I have another launch to go to today where this is not at all the way it looks. So I brought a change of clothing. So get ready for the second show later today. Different boots, everything. All right. So I know it's a silly thing, but I'm so excited for these boots. I can't even tell you. All right. So let's hear a little bit about this issue. I'd like to start. We'll start with Ethan Kraft, our editor-in-chief, who will tell us a little bit about the issue, and then we'll move maybe to Sophie to tell us a bit about design, because it's beautiful. For those of you who'd like to see the issue, what you need to do is go into, let me see. Can I have someone join via Zoom? You probably can't because what I'm gonna tell you is you're gonna go to sheepsheadreview.com. If I can type it. And when you go there, there's a tab for issues. You can pull that up and be able to click on this issue yourself if you'd like to do that. I will be in this room where we are. I have the issue on screen and I'll flip through it as people are talking so y'all can keep up. So sorry, you're just gonna have to do a little work to get to the issue right now. I don't have the link to grab for you with my screen open to throw it up there for you. But it's at the website and it's under issues, you'll see it. And we encourage you to share widely if you're a contributor and everyone else. All right, Ethan, you want to tell us a little bit about your stuff? Do you want me to go to your editor letter?
Yeah. Are you sharing with the Zoom?
I will now.
Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. If any of you don't know me, I'm Ethan Kraft, the current editor-in-chief here at Sheepshead Review. And this is my first semester as editor-in-chief, but third semester on staff. So I welcome all of you. Fantastic issue created by our wonderful Sophie, who designed a very Bauhaus-esque. Yeah, sure, you can. I'll talk more about it later. Coming into this semester, one of the things we were met with is we had the realization that we wouldn't have a budget, or we didn't know if we would have a budget to be able to print our issue. And there was a little bit of a panic of how our staff was going to run for the semester and what the issue would look like. But we pressed on forward anyways, with the plan to hopefully get funds, which we did, and we will have a printed issue. We met with SUFAC and we were able to get everything sorted out, and we'll have a print issue. It'll be sent out 2 copies each to every contributor in mid to late January of next year. But we pressed on forward anyway, unsure, luckily it all worked out. One of the biggest things we added for this year's issue is we added our author and artist bios underneath each piece, which is something that's pretty common for most journals in the industry. And it's something that we had done in the past, but it sort of fell out over the years. So I'm very glad that we've added this in, and we're planning on integrating this for every semester to come, hopefully. And it's a wonderful issue full of people from, submitters from all over the world, all over the state, lots of locals. Many of our students and, people here on staff have pieces in the issue. And thank you all for joining. Thank you all for helping create the journal. It's really to be us working on staff, for everyone joining us on Zoom, and I hope you all enjoyed the issue.
Yes, love that. All right, so Dan, tell us your thing. Tell us who you are.
I'm Sophie Vivo, the designer. I'll keep it brief. So this is my first semester doing Sheepshead. I am not an illustrator, so I was a little intimidated coming in, just because a lot of the past issues have been kind of heavily illustrated, but I am a graphic designer. So I wanted to bring kind of a designy feel to things. So first and foremost, I really wanted to make sure that the content was first and the design was second. So I wanted the inside to feel a little bit more minimalist so that nothing was overshadowed by design. And then I kind of went wild with it on the cover and the back cover. Yeah, so I think we did a pretty good job. It was a very collaborative effort. Got a ton of great feedback, kind of draft to draft to draft from the class. And yeah, I think it's gonna be an enjoyable thing to page through.
All right, thank you. All right, and with that, oh, good, thank you for the compliments, reading compliments. Oh, it's so pretty, and people are very excited. And thank you, Rochelle, for putting that link up in the chat. If you are attending via Zoom and you'd like to be able to get quickly to the issue, thank you, Professor Evans, for adding that to the chat. That was super useful, so that's a way to get there. Okay, so now, if you guys are all right with it, I'd love to hear from some folks that are in the issue. Something to keep in mind, if you page through the issue, I don't know if there's any special demarcations for the people who are on Zoom, but when you go through the issue, and again, right now it's just digital, it will be in print, as I said, we'll be getting it out in January. You'll see markers if, for example, the contributor is from high school, and we have high school contributors, it's wild, like from all over the globe. And I just have to say, like, when you submit to Sheepshead Review, your work is in contention with I think we had what, 560, 580,
568.
whoa, 568 submissions just for this semester. And so if you are a high school student and you're able to like get work in, that's incredible. Not to dismiss any other people here, but boy, that's a gutsy thing to be able to accomplish so young. Also for college students, we have a number of contributors who are on staff here or who are UWGB students. I need to tell you, those of you who are out there and maybe don't know Sheepshead Review, we use an anonymous submission process and we make sure to strip off names of campus contributors. Also, we have a lot of guidelines about how to treat work if you have submitted work and you are on staff, and we have all kinds of protections. We also have like an ethics contract that we make people sign. Like we go over the top to ensure fairness when it comes to making sure we're representing the like breadth of our submitters. So I just want to make sure people understand we really try very much to make this journal have as much integrity as we possibly can. Okay, so all that aside, I'm going to let this next person in, but who would like to begin the process of reading? Either if you have a longer work, we would ask that you read like a page or like a part of it. And if you have a poem or a piece of visual art, we would love to hear you talk about it or read the whole thing. So is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to start us off? We have a lot of guests that have come. Who would like to begin? Would anyone from the Zoom screen like to launch us into something? Come on, guys.
I'm trying to join the Zoom.
I'll get them in just a sec. Okay, Dave Donaldson.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and it's afternoon here where I am. It's a pleasure to be in this issue. It's very exciting. The story that I submitted is a piece of nonfiction. It's rather long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I can assure you that this actually happened many years ago with my son and I. We were on a river float trip down the Usumacinta River in Guatemala, and unfortunately we camped in the wrong place, according to some armed guerrillas that confronted us on that trip. So I'd like to read a short passage. If I can get to, let's see, I need to change my view just a little bit. So I was going to open okay. There we go. Here we are. Let me read. I'll start. This is about 2/3 of the way through the piece. And my son and I have been dragged out of our tents and lined up with the other people that are on the float trip with us on this river. Another man came out of the jungle to face us. He carried himself with authority, wore a set of fairly new fatigues, and carried a pistol, not a Kalashnikov like the others. As soon as he appeared, the man who had brought Jeremy and me took the things from our tent to him. I blanched when I saw the military knapsack I used as a day pack and the even more incriminating Army surplus metal ammunition case that I had bought because it was waterproof and I could carry my film in it. The commander, if that's what he was, held them up and shouted something unintelligible in Spanish. All I could understand was the name Reagan. That made no sense. But then nothing in our situation made sense. The one person in our group who spoke the language, Coronado, a student from Villa Hermosa, tried to speak calmly and quietly to the commander, but it was clear whatever he said made no difference. The commander held up my incriminating ammunition case. "¿Qué es esto?" I think he said. I didn't understand the words, but the threatening tone needed no translation. "That's just film," I said, and stepped forward, thinking I could open the box to show him. But before I could take a second step, the guard behind me grabbed the back of my shirt collar and pulled me back into line. "Film fotografico," Coronado said. The leader's eyes narrowed as he looked first at me and then at the case. He unclipped the lid and turned the case upside down. Yellow Kodachrome boxes cascaded down to the sand. The light-proof black bag that held the exposed rolls fell on top of them. "Ha," he said, tossing the empty ammunition case onto the pile of film lying on the ground. Curtly, he said what sounded like a demand about CIA. I looked at Coronado for a translation. His eyes were huge, his lips trembling. "He wants to know if you are a spy for the CIA," he said. My mind froze. I couldn't form the right words because I knew the wrong ones could be disastrous. "Tell him what you do, Dad," Jeremy whispered. He brought me to my senses. "Right, yes, soy journalista," I said, trying to sound harmless in pidgin Spanish. Coronado shook his head. "Periodisto," he said to the commander. My khaki backpack was at the leader's feet. It held my notebooks and sketchbooks. I knew they were harmless, but I could only hope he thought so too. The commander picked it up and unsnapped the cover. He flipped open my sketchbook, snorted at what he saw, and dropped it on the pile of film boxes in the sand. He looked hard at me, then slowly scanned everyone else in the line of whatever we were: hostages, prisoners, visitors to his country with terrible timing, victims of something bad yet to come. Not knowing what he considered us to be was as frightening as the guns. At that moment, we became an audience. And that's where I'll stop in the interest of time. Oh,
We are so excited that we were able to publish this piece. It is nonfiction staff absolutely loved it. So thank you for allowing us to have this work to publish. It's amazing, and thanks for reading it.
thank you.
Who would like to be our next person? I'm gonna keep it on Zoom for a while because you all are from without. So who else from the Zoom screen would like to share their work with us or talk about it? Okay, I see Stephanie.
Hello, can
All
you hear me?
Move this thing.
Thank you. So I wrote about my experience in Japan when I went to visit there with my family. I went to join over summer vacation, and I'm so nervous. My notes are all funny now. I apologize. I have a copy right here. Okay. So I know my piece is very long, and I'm glad I don't have to read all of it because it is a lot. And so I like to read from maybe chapter one. I am so sorry. I'm taking forever.
All right, you're doing great.
I'm really nervous. This is my first time ever. Okay. So I'm gonna go as I came in from the walk that my grandmother helped me dress up, and I was very nervous and like I am today right now. But it's my first time ever been to this festival, so. As evening descended, I was gradually enveloped by the twilight. I stood upon the hill, looking down the open pathway to the festival. Paper lanterns lit up the path in the starless evening. I found my friend Masami sitting on a blue and green blanket on the ground, with her knees bent under her. She was dressed in a beautiful black yukata with a pattern of light blue morning glory flowers and golden leaves wrapped around a bright red oldie. She held a can of Chew High, leaving a wet trail of condensation on her fingers. Upon seeing her, I was overcome with joy, as our friendship remained a vital source of love and acceptance. Enthusiastically, I greeted her as my stomach growled at the smell of the food stands that came across the summer breeze. We both laughed and looked towards the already forming line in the yakisoba stand my grandfather volunteered for each year. Waiting in line, holding our drinks, we could see the towering drummers' muscled arms glisten with sweat. They struck their instruments perfectly synchronizing with the music from the loudspeakers. The drums were hit with such ferocity that it shook the very air surrounding us. I felt the relentless pounding rhythms reverberating in my chest. With the drums echoing through my heart, I felt a rush of anticipation and joy of being part of an event that was such spiritual connection from the trees surrounding us to the embrace of the children's laughter as they zigzagged between the adults standing in line. The air was charged with energy, and I felt as though my ancestors were chasing the children, glancing their soft touches on our cheeks as the gentle breeze flowed through that evening. I looked around, soaking in the vast colors of children's yukatas streaming by. The music reminded me that now I'm part of a community that treasures these moments. The beat of the drums was the very heartbeat of the community, pulsed through the air, the rhythmic fusion of the ancient tradition and modern melodies across the globe. There. It's only a short part of the festival that I experienced in Japan. And I thought it was a very beautiful experience because my family volunteers for it every year. And I was able to go visit my family, my Japanese side of the family that year, and actually be part of this festival and be part of that. So I had a lot of fun that day. It's a beautiful experience.
When
So-
you read, that was wonderfully read. So thank you so much for reading for us and letting us hear it, how it sounds to you. It's really great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Who would like, do we have other folks who are we seeing? I can't tell.
In the chat.
In the chat. Oh, okay. Yes. Nat, am I saying your name correctly?
The easiest possible way, just Nat.
Nat? Okay, Nat, sorry. Right, I
No,
just
it's
did the
okay.
T. Yeah, okay, so what would you, go ahead, tell us what your work is and go ahead and read or talk about it.
Great. Let me do this. Here we go. Yeah, so this is a poem that I wrote originally a couple of years ago when the person I was dating was going through heart surgery. And it's been pretty funny. I've read this again recently. The part of the reason why I submitted this is I have a really dear friend who had her first chapbook coming out, and it was a big breakup, like talking about Pacific Northwest winters and breakups and what comes out of death and all these like really deep, dark stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll read before you and I'll like introduce you and everything, but just to keep the cycle balanced, I'll read some love poems. I've got like loads of love poems. I'll find some good love poems and pick this one out. And then was like, wait, I don't think I know what a love poem is. So
that's great.
Yeah, I've been going through some old work and have just been like, I think I need to work on that, but it is a good poem and I'm really, really proud that you guys selected it. Heart listening. I've been spending a lot of time listening to the heart of the man I love. I don't mean that in the same way the girl in the coffee shop did when she leaned over me, gently brushing her fingertips above the neckline of her low-cut shirt, looked into my eyes and half breathed, half sung, listen to your heart before gliding out the door. Her name on her tall soy chai obscured by one delicate thumb. For months afterwards, I called her Princess Fairy Chai, and you sometimes laughed. I just mean that the man I love is the perfect height for heart listening. My ear pressed hard against his rib cage, just listening. And I worry that his heart is broken, not because of the constant loss we all experience over and over again. Disappointments that start with not getting an ice cream cake for your 3rd birthday and continue until they are a constant parade of losing everyone who's ever seen you as anything. Broken, not because I don't love him enough or because he doesn't love me enough, though both things will turn out to be true. I mean, actually broken, one errant valve creating chaos in the part that my person cannot live without. To fall in love and know that my ear on his chest can't make it work, not his heart, not anything else. All I can do is lie still and listen to this very real sound that belongs to my most important other. Thank you, guys.
I just wish I could use the camera to zoom in on poetry staff right now because they are just like, they're like making all of the gestures.
Because we love you so much.
You heard that. They said we're freaking out because we love you so much and we love this poem. So that's wonderful. All right. Would someone else like to read? I'm gonna still defer to Zoom for a bit before we do some folks in this room too. Do I see Kristen Zivit?
Sure.
Okay. Poetry.
Because I think it's a perfect sequel or a sequitur. Yeah.
All right. Why did I say
Sure.
reason? Poetry's freaking out again because I'm very excited about the way this is all coming together. So thank you.
Yeah, this poem is really important to me, and I'm very grateful to the reviewer for publishing it. For many years, I was the primary caregiver for my husband. This is very disconcerting because I can't see myself. Okay. Well, for many years, I was the primary caregiver for my husband, and he had first kidney failure, then on top of that, cancer, and finally, congestive heart failure. And I hope you don't know at firsthand what that is like for a caregiver. I hope this poem is as close to that as you will ever come. There's an epigraph after the title. It's from the Latin Mass. Libera me, Domine, de ore leonis. It means, deliver me, Lord, from the lion's mouth. Congestive heart failure, stage 3. Libera me, Domine, de ore leonis. This losing rubs me raw. Hope and despair, each with a lion tongue, scrape away meat. Days you breathe easily, the great cat carries me. I hang upside down from its tight jaw, hot paws drum downhill slow. The heavy head shakes to be sure I'm keeping limp. I'm bound for the den. Tumbling blind, raking with baby claws, they yowl for me. But on the days you pant, there is no weight, only the rip and crackle. The sternum breaks and breaks again because bone is the thinnest glass, and love can do nothing to stop this, nothing to nudge back your limping bulk, singled from the pack, while my heart beats frantic alongside yours, showing you the rhythm, willing you to lope, to try.
Thank you for sharing that. That was so moving and you are an incredibly skilled reader. So thank you so much for bringing voice to that piece for us. I see that Eren, am I saying it right? Okay, would like to read next, please do. And this is also poetry?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, poetry again is freaking out. Like everybody's making poetry staff's day. So thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thanks everyone for including my piece in the current issue. It's a real honor to be here alongside everyone, and I thank everybody for their hard work on this project. So this poem is partly inspired by my experiences of growing up in a safe house for undocumented migrant kin from Mexico, Central America, and South America that my parents ran in a small town in New Jersey that years later would kind of become well known for being the location of two reality shows. One of the reality shows is The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and then the second reality show that partially is filmed in my hometown is The Jersey Shore. So this is another look at this community. Yes, yeah. It's called Escape from Small Towns. It's on page 25. And it's inspired also by Ode to Small Towns by Tyree Day, a really amazing poet in the Carolinas. This is where all my bad memories reside. The first time I got called a racial slur and learned of many more. This where I watched a man try to sneak up on my father with a 2x4 until I leaned on our car's horn. This where they let the reservoir flood, leaving us in the mud. This where my dad's heart broke, pretending to only be disgusted every time our windows got busted. Because 1983 resembled 1883. This where I first wanted to disappear. This where I slept between the stalks. This where I learned how to climb. This where I learned how to fight and why. This where I missed out on the charm of small towns. This where my mother got arrested. This where my cousin got arrested. This where we almost got run over. This where they killed our animals. This where they tried to bury us. This where I jumped into the sky and flew far away. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us and reading it. And what a different, what a different angle on the town. So other folks who would like to contribute, talk about, we have some visual art folks that are on screen if they'd like to talk about their piece, says. We're certainly excited to talk about your visual art if anyone would like to do that. I'm doing a direct call just because I really like it when people talk about his arts. So I'm like, is anyone out there? I think you are, because I can see your name in the table of contents. Would anyone like to talk about their
Maria
visual?
raised her hand.
Okay, there, good. That's what I was trying to get to do. Because this stuff is so cool. All right, so please, Maria Teresa, if you would, tell us about your work.
Thank you very much. Oh, I have trouble with my connection. Thank you very much for having me. I am delighted to be in this journal because part of my education is theoretical. I study art history and philosophy. So being part of this journal is amazing to me. So these paintings are a tribute that I'm doing to actress who have contributed to the Hollywood. Many of them are with Latin American background because I am from Latin America. So they have built up Hollywood especially during the silent movies. But also we have Sophia Loren. We also have Marilyn. And the other two that you have is Beatriz Michelena and Dolores del Rio. They were during the silent era movies. So I trying to recreate these women, bringing them close to us, presenting them not as sensual or objects. I like to present them as women as I am, just with all the things that means to be a woman. So in the case of Marilyn, I put aside all the sexual symbol that she has, and I just showing a really delicate and sweet woman that probably she had that face that we are not used to see it, but she was that too. And that is the case with all the women. Every one of them, I try to have a connection with my own life. I chose Marilyn because I admire her. Sophia Loren, I always wanted to be like her. always wanted to be like Sophia Loren, and I was wearing that haircut style during many times, for a long time. Beatriz Michelena, for me, represent my alter ego, because she was writer, dancer, singer. She was opera singer. She was producer, director. She was everything. She expressed art in all the possible areas that we can imagine. So this is what I like of. I'm just a painter mostly, and I would like to have been like her. And well, that's Sophia Loren that I was talking. And Dolores Del Rio. Dolores Del Rio is, I present her like a mystical woman. She's full of spirituality and deepness. And she's a very powerful and strong woman. And I think I am all of them and none of them at the same time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
I always love looking at what's happening in visual art, because it's the area that I know the least in terms of the kind of work that I do. I'm also a writer and I teach writing. So when I'm seeing what the visual art staff is looking through, I'm always just like, I'm blown away. Like, we consistently get incredible submissions of visual art. And so when we saw your work, I was like, who is that? What are they doing? Like, it was really, really great. So thank you so much for having it in our issue. It's really, and we're lucky to have 4 pieces. They're very beautiful. We also
Thank you.
have
It's my honor.
thank you. We also have someone else who's in our room right now who has a number of pieces throughout the issue. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth now between Zoom and people who are here. So Madden, would you like to talk a little bit about the pieces you have in the journal? And if we can, we might try to get to the other ones too.
Yeah.
If not, we'll save it until a little bit later. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I had 2 pieces in BizArts, very different, done separately. So fortunately they don't have the I'm not lucky enough to have them all kind of be in the same media, so they have very different things. So the first one, On the Balcony, as it's a copper etching print. It is based off of a quote from a short story sort of prose sort of thing, which, if I recall correctly, we just had to pick them. We had to pick them randomly out of a hat, and then we had to make something based off it. It was she wasn't doing anything that I could see except standing on the balcony holding the universe together. Now, I don't recall the name of the piece, but when I read the whole piece, I found it fairly misogynistic and a little gross. So I immediately was like, I want to subvert this a little bit. I remember it's a little hard to see, especially on here, but there's a symbol on the ring, which is 2 interlocking androgynous symbols, or symbols for non-binary. So when you use interlocking gender symbols, like 2 female symbols together, that implies lesbianism or like a lesbian relationship. And so this would be a genderless relationship between 2 people, both of which are genderless, one of which is the universe. So this process is interesting. Copper etching, if you don't know, you take a copper plate, you cover up parts of it with things like spray paint, chemicals, I don't know the name of those, and then you dip it into a corrosive, an acid, that isn't fun when it splashes on your skin. And then you do that multiple times to get the different shades of ink. So it's an interesting process and a little bit violent for such like a soft, swirly piece, but there's sorry, I'm really nervous about this.
You're doing great.
Thank you. So that's that one, and then we can go with the other one, which is, like I said, very different, lesbian sheep syndrome, also focusing more on the queer experience. And this one's very different. It is just ink on paper. It started off as a collage with some digital elements, some actual physical magazine elements. And then if you aren't familiar with lesbian sheep syndrome, it's kind of a joke on the fact that the way that female sheep kind of signal they're ready to mate is they just stand still. So if there's 2 sheep that are lesbians, they don't do anything. They just stand there and look at each other. And this is a joke in that this can happen with lesbians as well, because typically the men will take the leading role. So sometimes if you're used to that, you just end up dancing around each other until hence you have the dancers surrounded with sheep. However, they are making a move on each other. And so they are looked down lovingly by the lesbian gods. We're very proud of them. So it's a bit of a joking piece, just kind of seeking to explore another aspect of the queer experience, similarly with the On the Balcony.
Excellent. That's why I love to have the art people talk, because I would never, I mean, I wouldn't get that joke, or I wouldn't know what all you're doing there. So thank you so much for sharing that. We will say too, we don't know that we'll be able to get to it during this launch, but we also on our website have digital and interactive media that we can't publish, obviously, because you have to interact with it online. And Madden has 2 pieces, and they're on our website as well under, I think it's called digital and interactive media. So please check those out. And I know VisArts was really excited about those. Not so sure if we can manage the tech in here today with that, but if we can, we will. But otherwise, please check those out on our website. They're really wonderful. I'd love to have us move to Alex. Has everyone had their food already? Like, have we all eaten what we want? Because things are gonna change around a little bit here, and this might get a little gross.
Slightly, if people don't like spiders, unfortunately, we are talking about them, so.
Yeah.
Enter at your own peril.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about this piece. I wrote it maybe less than a year ago. I was dealing with some things with my biological dad that just weren't really all that well. I'm not getting into all the gory details, ironically enough, but this was just kind of me first experiencing what it's like to cut someone off and just understanding, or at least attempting to understand what it felt like to have to do something that I knew that I couldn't really go back from, if that makes sense at all. I think I can read this real quick because it's a smaller piece, so. Alright, I watch it move, scuttling about in my hands, completely unaware of its fate. The tarantula shifts from one to another, almost dizzily, almost hazily. My arms feel like lead holding it, the fuzzy shape stepping about, slowly causing my entire body to freeze. It doesn't feel like an insect. It feels like I was staring right into the gaze of Medusa, or as much as I could with its 8 eyes shifting, the tingling feeling being the only reminder that I wasn't thinking of marble. Yet I feel so entranced by its movements, even as it spills out of my hand and I constantly move it back to where I wanted it. I couldn't let it out of my sight, or I would never do this. I would never muster up the courage again. The thatch feels like it's conforming to my own wavelength, quivering in time to the pitches of my own nerves, silently, like it was attempting to connect to me, to attach itself to me, to make me a part of the web that it wanted to weave. A small tear trickles down my cheek. Looking at the dark, hairy thing was similar to staring into a thick, impenetrable fog, one that quickly shrouds my mind. It twitches more, my heart leaping in tandem. How is my hand moving on its own? It feels so detached from my own thought process. 1 tear turns to 2, and 2 to 3, and 3 to rivulets rockulating down my face. My body now began to shake in rhythm with the tarantula. It's still not aware of anything. My breathing feels like it isn't enough to keep me alive. My toes curling reflexively, goosebumps stabbing their way out of my forearms as if my skin itself is trying to flee. My hand draws ever closer to me, my breath sending the tarantula wriggling backwards. I grit my teeth, close my eyes for a small breath, and all I can manage is a flash of fangs, but it quickly falters. There are bite marks along my tongue, legs scrambling for freedom against my lips. Even then, I can't waver in this pursuit. For as much pain as this is, it will all be temporary. Once more, white glints from my face, and this time, a grotesque squish. Shame it couldn't make any kind of sound. It would be nicer to hear more, to be able to reflect on it more. I can imagine it squealing in anguish, a cacophony of terror of a being in pure agony, but it can't squeal. It can't give that satisfaction. Even if it had derived so much satisfaction from the horror it caused me, I can't be on its level in that way. The inside of my mouth feels warm. The hemolymph is sloshing about, even dabbling out the corner of my lip. It's slowly coating my tongue, my teeth, my cheeks. The body spasms more and more across my tongue, inflicting it to the back of my mouth. It twitches, just barely alive, down my esophagus with an audible gulp. It quivers as it slinks down. The only bits of legacy of the life it led will fade, even if it feels like it will take eons to heal. My mouth flashes into a smile, a cascade of tears and eyelid my cheeks, and a quick sigh of relief bubbles out quickly behind it. I collapse onto the cold, uncaring tiles, my throat hiding itself in drought. Like an electric zing, fear that the spider will crawl its way back up and terrorize me all over again surfaces, even if I know it's not logical. My mind begins to feel so euphoric at the same time, my eyes lolling into the back of my head, the taste of the flesh so sickening, so bitter, but so inviting and sweet. I don't even feel like the world is real this day, this minute, this hour. With that damn tarantula, it was gone. That fear, that worry, the panic, the burden, all of it simply gone. I don't have to be afraid anymore because the fear no longer rests in my head or outside. It rests in my stomach, devoured by the newest monster.
Really well done. And I love, love, love Alex. A lot of people who submit to the journal have never done this before and they don't know how to do a contributor note. And so Alex had written me and said, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, send me a draft. What do you think? And that's when I learned that Alex is known for his work that is in the genre of trashy baroque. Which I love.
I've been called it that once and it really stuck.
I love it. That's like, I would totally just use that for everything I send out. Hello, I work with trashy baroque. I may have invented the genre. I think it's great. So thank you so much for that. We really loved it. So we also have, Sylvia, would you like to read part of your work for us? This is a work of nonfiction.
So this piece is, it's a short memoir that I wrote about my experience as a trans woman. I'm gonna read the first page plus the rest of the paragraph on the second page. A baby boy was born, given a name. The first name he was given, a biblical name, translating to son. The middle name, his father's first. And of course, his last name, Fager, could not have been more apt foreshadowing. A beautiful name for a beautiful boy who would certainly grow up to be just like his father, namesake and all. This boy would survive a nasty divorce between his parents, one which seared and broiled all the way until he left for college. The abuse left him traumatized and cold. The name was apt. It referenced only where he came from. When you would look into those empty eyes and ask what he enjoyed doing, someone else had to answer for him. His name was dead long before it was a dead name, carried no life in it. He was fully ensnared by his past, both literally and metaphorically. The name came to me as if it chose me. Delivering a sandwich to a college dorm, I decided first that I would date a woman with the name on the receipt, Sylvia, then that I would give it to my daughter should I ever have one. Nevertheless, the name stuck with me, lodged in my brain. It was the only thing of value to me, though I had yet to realize it. He was trapped on all sides. A wall for the religion that obliged him to submit, to become a perfect servant to an unseen God who left no room for individuality. A wall for the family that refused to let him heal. A wall for his chosen path in life, thrust upon him until even the idea of a choice seemed a lie. A wall which limited the ways he could express himself to those he would only tolerate, for masculinity and all that it demanded of him. The walls that surrounded him pressed ever closer, a prison made just for him. As the walls drew nearer and nearer, he tried to ignore them. Although the claustrophobia would fade at times, it would always return. I would never grow to accept my place in the world. Eventually, I worked up the courage to simply do something, anything. It seemed an insurmountable task to escape fully, but I knew that this prison was not one to live in, not forever. It had taken far too long, but eventually I began to push at one of the walls. At 11:35 p.m. on a Thursday, when I had to get up at 5:30 the following morning, in the safety of a friend's Discord DMs, I finally admitted to myself what I had felt all along. I had seen that there was a crack in one of the walls, and I began to tear away at it. Over the course of the next 2 hours and the next full year, I pursued that feeling all the way to its edge. The boy felt as if he didn't deserve the name, not until he had fully escaped his prison. By the time I had finished that year, I no longer cared to earn the name. I would use it regardless. In claiming that name for myself, the wall was shattered, never to entrap again. The others would soon fall as well.
Sylvia, it's nothing if not ethical, and asked, is it okay for me, like, what would happen if I submitted this piece? And when she told me that this is what she was doing, I was like, you have to. And so I'm so glad that you submitted it, and I'm so glad that we were able to publish it and that nonfiction loves it so much. So thank you so much for doing that. We'd love to have some of our other visual artists, maybe talk about their work. So we have Michael and we have Hiba. So which of you would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
My piece is
Finding it.
it's called The Cry of the Banshee.
Such so pretty. So much.
It's right there.
Oh, very good. Okay.
So I was this is an ode to a character.
Oh.
And when I was making it, I was a little short of time. I had purchased watercolors and they came like 2 days before the due date. And this is the first time I've done watercolor.
Oh.
But the story behind this is that this character, he is called the Banshee, and he roams across the earth, only knowing what he was forced to learn growing up, which was to cause destruction. And this is, I tried to capture that feeling of what am I doing with my life, you know. And there's a couple of little things in there that are very symbolic, like the trail of flowers he's on, or the dead bodies. And throughout his story, he kills less people and saves more. And at the same time, it signifies like the beauty of the broken world that he lives in. And you can't see it, but the people call him the Banshee because of the mask he wears that he's holding, and it's in the visage of a barn owl. And if you guys didn't know, I believe the myth of banshees came from barn owls.
Wow, it's gorgeous. All right. It's really so clarifying to learn all of this about your inspiration and all of that. And that's what you do, like at the last minute. Wow.
My first one.
Yeah, it's like I never even touched a watercolor before. All right, so go ahead, Hiba, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. All right, so this first piece that I had, Listen, is pretty straightforward. Like I didn't put a lot of thought into it. Specifically, it's very much within my comfort zone as to what I'm used to. Typically I either use watercolors or digital. But I was just like Pretty Woman, I guess. Yeah, I just like drawing beautiful women, so that's pretty much all the thought that went into this one. I wanted to play around with lights as well a little bit, so that's like why it's kind of like through a window pane. And then the second one was a little bit deeper. It had a little bit of a deeper meaning. So I have like a fear of like being seen, kind of like an anxiety of all eyes in the room being on me, kind of like right now. But basically I wanted to convey that with this piece. So when I first started this piece, I wasn't sure how weird I wanted it to be. I knew I wanted it to be weird, but I was like, okay, it's gonna be on a subway, like for sure. And I was like, okay, where do I want this to be on the weirdness scale? So at first I was like, oh, it's gonna be like very normal, and then like there's just gonna be kind of a couple odd things. But then I was like, no, I'm dropping that. I'm gonna go all the way to 100%. I'm there. And I was like, okay, how many weird characters can I add? So that's basically what it is. And then I was like, okay, I finished all my characters and I was like, something's still missing. And that's when like the eye monster thing in the middle came along, because like he wasn't, or it wasn't supposed to be in the piece at first, but I was like touching it up like very last minute, and I was like, okay, it's still missing something. So I was like, okay, I kind of want that to be the main focus, because that's kind of what it's like supposed to describe, like the idea of like being seen. So eye monster, right, smack in the middle.
Mhm.
And that's basically the thought process behind this piece.
Wow. All right. Well, see, after you've like now had all eyes on you and we were like clapping and excited, maybe you can do like a happy one. It's like everyone loving, like I had little hearts all over the place. Seriously, really wonderful explanation. I love learning all of that. You also have, I'm not going to force you to do this right now, but you also have other work in the issue from other genres. It's always great when we have folks that go like their work it actually appears in multiple genres in the issue. It's kind of a really amazing trick to pull off. So, and they're all of our, the way we work is we have all these separate staffs. They work with each other for most of the semester. And so this is again a testament to how powerful your work must have been to come through all of that level of scrutiny. So excellent. Let's see. Do we have time for just a little bit more? Sid, I don't know if you have an upper piece or a downer piece. I'm not sure.
I would say it's an upper.
Okay, good. All right.
Wow.
Okay, so Sid is gonna read a little bit of your piece to kind of close us out. So is it a closing piece? I sure hope so, because that's what you're doing.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll wait until Ethan gets
Ooh,
there.
Iran wrote you a note.
So my piece is titled Sustenance, and I was basically inspired by a conversation that I had with my best friend Jordan, where he talks very plainly about how love is such a ferocious feeling for him. And he was lamenting one night to me that he kept running into people where he felt like he was their dessert, basically. And I wanted to reassure him somehow, and I was like, no, I promise you out there, you are someone's sustenance. And that is where the inspiration for the line of poetry comes from. So I don't know, I would like to read the end, Ethan, if you wouldn't mind going a few pages in. So I'll start with where they introduce each other. So at this point, Helena, the main character, has been lamenting to herself about how she cannot be the main character. She doesn't believe in herself enough to actually be a success in this world. She doesn't believe in herself enough to really introduce herself to this girl that she's been crushing on that keeps coming into her tea shop. She finally gets the courage, and she introduces herself, and I'll start with, "This place will do that to you," Helena said, excited for the chance at small talk. She stopped cleaning for a second and stood straight. "You know, you've been coming in a lot, and I haven't gotten your name. I know all of the regulars that come in," she said, hoping she wasn't being too forward. It was a question she'd asked literally every regular in the tea house. "I'm Mila," Helena noticed, her smile and tipped up to the right. "Helena," Mia nodded a bit, and Helena busied herself once more with closing, grabbing a broom to sweep up the wood floors. "I've got to ask, I'm so curious about what you write in your notebook when you come in," Helena said. She hoped it came out nonchalant and didn't give away her intense curiosity surrounding Mila. "Oh, it's nothing really. I'm a poet, and I always seem to find inspiration in this space." Helena shook her head. Of course she was a poet. Literally so cool. "How would you read? Wow, would you read me a line?" Helena said without thinking, and then wanted to smack a palm to her forehead. She was flustered talking to someone so stunning and cool, and reminded herself she was just being personable. "Oh, Mila pursed her lips and glanced away, seeming embarrassed. "Sure, actually." She flipped a couple pages in her notebook. "I think this is a nice piece. You may feel like a dessert, but I promise, love, you are somebody's sustenance." That was poetic. Stupid, Helena thought, and wanted to crawl under the counter and hide until Mila just left. But Mila actually chuckled. "Well, I guess I was hungry when I wrote that one." Helena let out a laugh, and they smiled together for a second before Mila sighed, slapped her hands on her thighs, and looked away. I should leave and let you get home. Take your time, I'm just closing up, and I already took your dishes a while ago. Helena went back behind the counter and started closing the till, counting to herself softly, only disturbed by the rustling of Mila getting ready to leave. The bell rang out as the door opened. Have a good night, Mila called, and Helena looked up. You as well. She watched her leave and finished with the till soon after. With everything clean and accounted for, Helena went to go. However, she stopped short, noticing something on Mila's table. There was a tip, a couple dollars, over a half sheet of paper. Helena went over, pocketed the cash, and unfolded the paper. In perfect cursive handwriting, it read, "You may feel like a dessert, but I promise, love, you are somebody's sustenance. Text me, 920-378-8681. With that, Helena supposed it was time she did the living.
I'm just gonna even come to every lunch and just keep reading that. All right, so that's a good way for all of us to think about going out and doing the living. I really do appreciate all the time that you've spent on the issue if you're on staff, and all of you as artists and contributors, all the work that you've put into creating something beautiful we can share and that you can share with the world. So very excited to have worked with all of you and to have all of your work this semester. We will have submissions open again in February or late January or sometime coming up soon for the spring issue. So that, keep your eye open. Definitely please resubmit your work or submit more work to us. We'd love to see it. I also do have to do a slight plug for a different thing. This afternoon, this is the first of 2 launch parties that some of us are going to today. This afternoon, those of you on Zoom, you're welcome to, if you want to put in the chat that you want to come to another thing. We are launching the teaching press here on our campus, has worked really hard this year on a book of Hmong oral histories and folk tales. We are so lucky that we're able to launch that in the archives today. Many of the people's grandparents were in this book. They're showing up, as well as local artists who are very much in support of the documentary artist who put this together, Sandra Shackelford. It's going to be amazing. 4:30 archives, and we do have a Zoom connection for that as well. Thank you, everyone. Grab some food and have a good rest of December into January. Yay!
Don't do it.
My next
Sorry.
I just wanted to set off some fireworks.
Nothing's happening.
I just read that piece and I don't even know.
Alright,
I don't know if I have the trigger warnings.
Like it's.
Yeah, I just like, and then like I'm walking on.
Yeah.
Yes, I laid it on my. I made it.